Aloha, everyone. My name is Jon Bauch. I'm a partner at Anthem Venture Partners, leading a SoCal fund, investing in a lot of mobile marketing companies. And I have here Stephen Blackwell, who's a portfolio company I brought along, to talk about it from the publishing side. So I thought it made sense to just talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing from an investor perspective in mobile marketing. And then I'll have Stephen talk about what he's seeing on the publisher side. So from an investor perspective, obviously we see a lot of mobile marketing companies, especially app companies, come through the door. I really see 5 key trends. One is that there's a lot of proliferation of native advertising in mobile apps. Native advertising is something that's been around now for several years. It's pretty manual. It's not going to go away anytime soon, but it's something that you have to really look at the user experience. Product integration in native advertising is something that we shy away from. We don't think that really works. But on the brand side and really being able to tell your story, if you get that into the right editorial, then sometimes that works. Historically, though, again, we stayed away from native advertising in general. The second key trend that we're seeing is, everyone knows mobile video is on the rise. For the first time ever, mobile video is surpassing video views on a PC, which is obviously huge. I'm sure all of you have a video strategy as part of your mobile marketing plan. I think that'll continue to increase as we see the ad spend increase. Next year alone, just to give you an idea of numbers, mobile video ad spend is expected to quadruple. So it's just under $1 billion this year. It's expected to be over $3 billion next year. So what does that mean? That means there's going to be a lot of new mobile ad formats. We saw with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram this year alone, changing their mobile ad formats, and we're going to see new creative formats, rich media units, et cetera, over the next year or two. The third key trend that I'm seeing is app marketing. So app companies, how are they developing their marketing strategy? It used to be about simply, trying to get on the top of the charts through downloads, and that's incentivized downloads. What we're seeing now is a movement away from that, less about incentivized downloads, more about click per install. We're seeing more ROI-driven app strategies, and so that's more ARPU and LTV. And so we like that because to advertisers, it's more measurable tracking ROI versus just downloads. And that's really important because I'd say, the other key trend that we've been seeing is there's a fair amount of app burnout, meaning that the average user here on your mobile device, you have 25 to 40 apps on your phone. However, you only use half of those. So you're downloading a lot of apps. There's too many apps out there. You don't know which ones you use. You don't even know which ones you have. That's obviously an issue. And so it's important that we're not measuring how many downloads of apps that you're putting on your phone, but what the actual engagement is. And so how do you engage consumers into using the apps on a daily basis? Well, one is obviously social media has done a great job doing that, but it's integrating chat and messaging into any kind of content on an app. That's really important. So what we're seeing is that, and our belief is that every app out there is going to have some kind of messaging component in the future, if it doesn't today already. Another key thing that we're seeing is wearable devices and IoT. While that's not going to replace mobile devices, our belief is that the amount of data that these devices are sending to an app is going to be really important. And so integrating wearable devices into your mobile marketing strategy is really important. And then I would say, lastly, that's pretty much, those are some of the key trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. And I want to turn it over to Steven here to talk about what he's seeing on the publisher side, because we only have a limited amount of time. So Steven, maybe if you could talk about what marketers are doing right, what are they doing wrong when it comes to mobile video, when it comes to native video, when it comes to native on mobile.
In my line of work, marketers only do the right thing. So I'm kind of accustomed to that. So just give you a little background on myself, and as Jon brought up before, I'm the CEO of Spinmedia. Spinmedia is a publishing platform. We've got about 25 million unique visitors in ComScore, something like 100 million in Google Analytics, big number like that. Our footprints are in the music and entertainment spaces. Because of where we play, our audience is predominantly this 18 to 34 millennial type that you guys are so interested in and hear so much about. And this audience is, if you can sum them up in three phrases, it's obviously they are digital native, social active, and device dependent. So we structure a lot of how we think about publishing, how we think about working with brands around mobile strategies, and obviously we collect tons and tons of data on how these folks are behaving on the mobile side. So a couple of things about Spinmedia is like I mentioned, we do a lot in music and entertainment. So because of that, we work with a bunch of brands like HBO and Apple and Nike and on the large scale, and then we also work with a bunch of alcohol brands and things like that, and everybody is coming to us basically for the same thing. How do we reach this 18 to 34 target? Not the alcohol brands; they only want to reach 21 to 34-year-olds, so they say. And how do we reach this target? How can you help us reach them? And what are some things that we can do? So what we always try to we have a process of getting RFPs, which you guys know all about. But what we really try to do is understand the business problem. And every brand has a different business problem with how it relates to this 18 to 34 demographic. And for us, what we're seeing is, basically I thought that this year in 2014 that the 18 to 34 use case for desktop, mobile, tablet was going to kind of hit homeostasis, where it was going to be about 50% desktop, 45% mobile phones, and 5%. To qualify those numbers a little bit more, this is about people that are coming to the sites and kind of how they're behaving on them. And even at the tail end of this year, just going into Q4, mobile has steadily increased to taking about 60% share of voice and channel drive. So which is something that was kind of unexpected, but it actually does make a ton of sense. So what we do and what we try to get brands to do is focus on this mobile side of things. Now, in our business, it's still CPM-based advertising, and the paradigm is still based around rotational media. And because of that, even the segments that might perform a little bit better, like experiential activations or native content. And Jon and I have a little bit of I should qualify our difference on native content, because doing native content in an app that kind of is a service provision that might be kind of nameless and faceless in some ways, but provides you some value in terms of hailing a cab or something like that, is completely different than doing native content on something like Spinmedia or something like Vogue or GQ or something along those lines, where you are integrating your brand's values with the values of your publishing partner in a way to really kind of enrich the consumer's life, which is what we focus on tremendously. But in the digital space right now, we still get RFPs that there's no mobile on them, and that are reaching 18 to 34-year-olds, and we go back and say, hey, you've got to, if mobile's not going to be the biggest part of your plan, you've got to go back and bake it in here somewhere. And then there's disagreement on what those CPMs should be. There's disagreement on share of voice between the split. We're seeing a lot of that in market, and we're trying to do our best to educate marketers and saying, hey, 60-70% of your plan has to be focused on mobile. Here's how we're going to, and this is the main way that people are coming to us now. In terms of what to do and how to do it, the way that we look at it is basically, how are people dealing with the device? And so what we look at it as kind of thumb stopping, and that's kind of what we think everyone's got to kind of look at it too. So you've got 4 billion years of evolution, and we're at a point where our thumb might have reached its apex of activity, which is basically sliding through pictures of cats on these futuristic devices, right? What's important is that that's how people are digesting the content. That's how people are integrating with the content. And so what's going to stop them in their tracks? What in their news feed is going to stop them in their tracks and make them click on something? What tweet is going to make them stop in their scroll and click on something? What article on a homepage, or what article in another content waterfall is going to make them stop and click? And so to that end, we think native content is extremely important because it's way more effective in the mobile space than a 320 by 50 ad or a 300 by 50 ad that do work well and do help tell a brand's mission, but it's kind of harder to do with the smaller viewport. Does that kind of answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Cool, right on. So those are the things that we're seeing right now. Basically, mobile is growing at an extraordinarily steady clip, and it seems to be, basically unstoppable for 18 to 34. And one of the things that we care about a lot too is not just how people are using the devices, but how you can actually use these devices to drive experience. And drive experience in a larger format, like something like a festival or something like an event, even of this size. And so what Spin does is we do a ton of work in the festival space. Just to throw some numbers out there about the millennial audience as well. Obviously it's 77 million, Americans are in this millennial segment, and 1 out of 5 of them attend a music festival. So music festivals are turning into a broader, more national pastime for these folks. And one of the explosion that occurred in the music festival space, over the past 10 years has kind of been driven by a couple of different things. One is that the more digital the world, the more, and I'm not a behavioral psychologist, but I believe this to be true, that the more digital the world, the more people are going to crave human interaction. So that is why you see festivals exploding. You see things like Coachella turning into 2 or 3 weekends, or cruises. You see something like South by Southwest going from 1 week to 3 weeks. The other side of it is that the mobile devices are really driving these experiential events, and they're driving them pre-event, they're driving them during event, they're driving post-event. So they're really responsible. The hardware itself is driving behavior because it's really responsible for the long tail, that's occurring. South by Southwest in 1994 was something that existed for 3 days. South by Southwest in 2015 is something that exists for 3 or 4 months. And it's because people are capturing so much on their mobile devices and sharing so much from their mobile devices that it's just basically changing the landscape. So as a marketer, if you can provide value during these experiences, provide a value add to the consumer, you can get a tremendous amount of their mind share because they're extremely responsive to brands understanding what they want and giving them something back in return.
So what are you seeing marketers do wrong when it comes to experiential or other, when it comes to mobile, when it comes to native?
Well, one of the things that we see a lot, and wrong is a strong word. What are some of the things that we see that we could say, hey, maybe we can help you. Maybe we can help you curtail your strategy a little bit more to land in the right spot. So one of the things that we'll see is we'll get a 5 or 6 panel brief on what a brand wants to activate and how they want to activate it, and there'll be a single bullet point about mobile. Use mobile where you can. Something along those lines. And what we always go back and say is, hey, here's the data, here's the metrics, here's how people are looking at things. This is viewability on mobile. This is the CTRs on mobile. This is a great opportunity for you to capture mind spare, to capture clicks, and to capture the audience in general. And you're basically ignoring it. We think that that's a problem for your business problem. So how can we help you there? And then the response typically is, well, what kind of rotational media can we put on it? And so rotational media on mobile devices, it's when we talk about thumb stopping, when you get to that 320 by 50 ad with a bunch of data and text crammed into it or some sort of image crammed into it, that's not exactly what we consider to be a thumb stopping activity. Now, if you're able to come to us and say, let me take a step back here and look at a 30,000 foot view. What I mentioned before was a value integration versus a product integration. So if a marketer comes to us and says, hey, we're releasing this shoe, can you talk about the shoe in your content waterfall and implement it in there, we're going to see a lot less success on that type of integration in the native content space. And the reason for that is the audience doesn't want to be pandered to, and the audience doesn't want to feel like the content is an ad, even though we're all using these Jedi mind tricks on ourselves where we're pretending it's not an ad when it really is. But they want to not feel like it's an advertisement. So I'll just throw out a brand partnership that we had on the native content side that was very successful recently. So we partner with a bunch of brands in the apparel space. One of our big partners is Uniqlo, and they came to us and said, well, we want to reach, and this is a highly specified target and segment. They said they wanted to reach 21 to 26-year-old postgraduates that are still kind of in school in San Francisco. So what's the best way for us to go about doing that? Well, obviously we've got tremendous reach in San Francisco already, so that was fine. But instead of saying, hey, this is the T-shirt that we want you to go out and buy, we came back with more ideas like 11 books that are actually worth reading on your summer vacation list, and things like that. And that content, those are the types of things that, in our space can get 4,000 or 5,000 shares, 10, 15, 25,000 page views, more engagement, way more engagement than saying, hey, here's a T-shirt that you should potentially go out and buy. So that's the difference between how we look at value integrations and how we look at product integrations. So we dive really, really deep with the brands on those types of things when we're moving forward.
Got it. What types of content do better on mobile versus on desktop?
Mobile is more snackable. So obviously the content waterfall on desktop and mobile is one-to-one, since we're all basically using one content management system that's delivering to all these places, right? But what we're finding is that where you might get 2 minutes, you might get 1 minute and 45 seconds on desktop, that's going to turn into 35 to 45 seconds on a mobile device. It's obvious the reasons why, because the behavior is so much more different on the mobile side than it is on the desktop side. 5 minutes? You got it. Well, I'm running out of oxygen already, so that's welcome news. We, for instance, I'm going to give a shout out to one of our competitors here, but Vox, when they launched Vox.com, which is Vox Media's news site, they call it the news but shorter. Now that's really smart, because that's what people are looking for. If you've got 60, 70% of your viewers coming through mobile devices, that's exactly what they're looking for, which is the news but shorter. So we find digestible content to be, snackable digestible content to perform much better on mobile devices. To that end too, as a publisher, we are obsessed with the notion of things going viral. When things go viral now, the spike comes almost, and by viral I mean something that explodes on Facebook, explodes on Reddit. When I mean something explodes on Facebook, I mean something getting something like 300 or 400,000 Facebook likes in the matter of 48 hours. When that sort of stuff happens, like 90% of the traffic that comes through is on mobile. So it shows you how much people are using mobile to get to content, and through social networks in applications. As a publisher, where our heads are at is that user adoption on the app download side, which Jon brought up before with app burnout. User adoption is a very, very tricky thing. I think that a lot of the ways that mobile can be more futurized is to have really, really dynamic, incredible experiences in browser that have video and content and photo all wrap into one kind of seamless place in the browser. Right now, the browser experience, as everyone here knows, is just kind of sliding around, and I think that or you can slide up and down and left and right, so that's tremendous. We think that there's a lot of innovation, a lot of stuff that can happen in there that can be really cool in the coming years.
Got it. Are there any questions that we could?
Yeah, do you guys have any questions for us? I'll take your tacit silence as no. We're at.
Maybe talk a little bit about pricing, so that marketers understand the difference in the price sheets on different ad formats on mobile. What are the CPM rates that publishers are getting, so they can understand the margin differential a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, in particular, and started to drone on about 18 to 34-year-olds, but and by the way, I'm about to age out of the demographic, which I'm kind of happy about. But the programmatic it's a really difficult way to reach this target. So for us and for a lot of our competitors as well, there's really three pillars on how we reach our audience. Rotational media is just one piece. Native is another big piece, and experiential is another. We don't have to get into the experiential side of things right now, so we can focus on rotational, and we can focus on native content. A lot of the ways that a deal gets structured from our end of things is we can package the native almost as a value add component to the CPM based paradigm, which is kind of wrapped around the fixed format units. I think that in here as a marketer, if your programmatic side, you are spending anywhere from 50 cents to $1 on a RTB trading desk, and then on premium sides, when you're working with your premium publishers, you're spending anywhere from $8 to $15 depending on how impactful the unit is. And on the mobile side, it's the mobile video CPMs. We're seeing in the ballpark of $17 to $18, and on high impact mobile, which is very, very disruptive for the consumer, we're in the 12 to 15 ballpark. On the the standard rotational runway, which is the 300 by 50 banner, that's something you're going to see more about a $6 to $8 CPM. Programmatic side on mobile, I think is pretty much the same as desktop, 50 cents to $1 range. So that's so for us to kind of tell our clients, hey, you have to push more towards mobile. You can do everything on mobile. You can deliver the same type of high impact experience on mobile. Screens are getting larger. People are spending more time on them. People are interacting with them more. Because that is an interesting thing, is that page views now for us are higher on mobile devices than they are on desktop devices. So people are clicking around a little bit more. So that engagement metric is going up, even if time on pages is starting to shrink a little bit because of the digestible nature of it. But that's what we're seeing on the CPM side of things. And obviously, one of the beautiful things about mobile, and a metric that I'm sure all of you care about more and more, is viewability. So one of the great things about mobile is that you're going to get a pretty much 100% viewability index on the rotational units that you're running. And if you're not seeing that with some of your publishing partners, then you've got a problem.